Hi, Shruti. Welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello.
Hi, thank you.
We're glad to have you here on the show because you are in the middle of the fight to debt freedom. And we can't wait to hear how things have been going for you thus far. But before we start talking about your journey, can you say hello to everyone that's tuned into the show right now and let them know what you are all about?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Sruti Basu. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I work in community development and urban planning. And yeah, like Ty and Scott said, I am in the middle of my debt-free journey.
Awesome. So let's talk about your journey. Tell everybody, when did you get started? And how much did you start with? What type of debt was it and where you are now?
Okay. So there was a few different times that I was in debt. So a few years ago, I paid off my car, and so that was kind of hard to calculate. But I'll start with the beginning of 2018 is where I have kind of all my numbers set, and I've been committed. So starting in the beginning of 2018, I had $32,000 in student loans, and I had about $14,000 in credit card debt. Um, so that's where I really became kind of strict, and I realized, I mean, one of my credit cards was maxed out, and that's when I really became strict and started to really discipline myself and create a plan.
So where are you at now? How much have you paid off in what time frame?
So since then, so it's probably been what, like 19 months or something, or 20 months. I have 11,400 left, and I started
Wow.
46. Yeah, so it feels good.
Actually, less than 20 months because you started in when in 2018? What month?
January.
January. So you're about 19, yeah, 19 months. Wow, that's
Wow.
incredible.
So that means you knocked out
Over 20,000.
20 something thousand. Wow. Man, you are rocking and rolling, Shruti.
Yeah, I actually started with 46 between the two. So,
Oh, wow.
um,
So you
yeah, so I'm excited
so over
to almost be
$30,000.
done.
And you also had a job change, which also meant for you, it was a decrease in salary and you were still able to pay off this amount. So let's talk about that. Once you decided to actually start this journey, then you were then hit with having to move with this job change.
Yeah, so I lived in Houston and I was making good money. I worked in philanthropy at a foundation, but I didn't really see my career. It wasn't my passion, and I knew what I wanted to do. So I switched and worked for, and where I currently work is a startup nonprofit that focuses on community development and urban planning and design. But since it's a small nonprofit, their budget was smaller, and it was a conscious decision. And no regrets. I love my job. I love waking up and going there in the morning, and there's a lot of room for growth. But in the short term, it's been hard to make things work financially. And I wish I had just paid off my debt when I had more money and was making more, but that's not what happened. I matured later than my job
Yeah, I
changed.
think what's remarkable about that part of your story is so many times people are always like, oh, well, that just means that they're making a lot of money in order to pay off this debt. But here it is. You had a job change and it was a decrease in salary, and you're still moving forward with getting rid of your debt. I mean, you paid off over $30,000 in 19, 20 months. That's incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah. So talk about your first steps. What were the first steps that you took once you made the decision? How did you come about making that decision first and foremost to saying that I know that I need to get out of debt? And then what were your first steps that you took?
So there was a few things that led me to realize that I really needed to get out of debt. Because before then I was just paying the minimums and I was traveling and shopping and just not living mindfully with my finances. But I think hitting 30 was a big thing. I think something happens in your mind as you hit 30 and get older. But I also got into a relationship, and my fiance, he's very money savvy. He has a small business and he works full time, and he's just very mindful. So he got in my head, and as we grew more serious, we started talking about marriage and things like that. And I learned that the number one cause of divorce was around finances, and that really was a like it really like got in my head, and I was like, okay, my finances are not in order. I have a lot of room to improve, and I don't want it to get in the way of my relationship. So that was one of the main things. Another thing was that my family lives all across the world, And I want to be able to be there for them and not charge it on my credit card. If there's a crisis or there's a situation or just celebrating a birthday or a wedding or a baby, I really wanted to be able to do those things without being financially stressed. So those are my two big motivators.
Awesome. So what were the first steps that you took? How did you walk this out?
So it was January 2018, and I created my first budget going into the new year, and I wanted to get out of debt. And at that point, my fiance and I weren't engaged, but I knew it was coming. So, the first thing I realized is I needed more money. I was like, oh, I'm not making a lot, and I need to make this work and aggressively pay off my debt. So I started dog walking. There's an app called WAG. A lot of my friends were driving Lyft, and I work at nonprofit, and I'm a pretty good writer. So people were saying, why don't you do some grant writing? But I really care about my health. So I didn't want to sit at a 9 to 5 all day and then also be driving or sitting and writing. So I was like, I need to do something that will let me move and be active, because now I'm not going to be able to go to the gym or run or exercise as much. So dog walking was great because I love dogs and I don't have a dog. So I kind of got my dog fix, and then I also was making sure I was moving and exercising daily. So with dog walking, I did that from January till about April, which is like the coldest months in Cleveland. So it's a struggle, but it was worth it. And I was able to pay off one of my credit cards. So that felt really good. But I was pretty burnt out because most of the time people want their dogs walked early in the morning or during lunch. So I was like, taking my lunch break and walking these dogs and coming back to the office like sweaty, or, before work, waking up. So it just wasn't sustainable. But I created that goal to have one credit card paid off, and I was able to do that. And then after that, I realized that I needed a more permanent side hustle. So I was thinking along the same lines, like what's going to let me move around, what's going to not be in my fields because I need to like let my brain rest and things like that. So I love Trader Joe's. I ended up getting a part-time job at Trader Joe's, and it's been amazing. They're such a great company. They pay you well. You get discounts on groceries. They're really flexible, and it's consistent. So I told them my schedule. I told them I can work one weeknight and then on Saturdays and Sundays, and it worked out because that's what they need. So I've been working at Trader Joe's since so almost a year at this point. Um, and so I've been working full time and working at Trader Joe's. And then also last year, one of my professors from school, I went to Case Western Reserve University, which is also in Cleveland. So I've been able to keep in touch with a lot of my professors and network. Reached out to me and said he thinks I'd be a good fit to teach adjunct at Case. So I picked up that as well. And that's more in spurts based on the semester. So there's some breaks in between. So I've been working full time, teaching, and working at Trader Joe's.
That's
So
awesome.
it's
got
helped
like
a lot.
you got like 17 jobs, Shruti.
Wow.
Talk about what it took for you mentally to be okay with doing some, because you were very, very thoughtful in your approach to this. You could have, like you said, you had friends that were doing Lyft, and you have the ability to write grants, so you could have took that talent and made something, but you were conscious of the fact of like, man, I'd rather do something more active. But you're doing a lot. Like you have a day job and a night job, plus you're in a relationship. How do you balance all of the above? How did you get yourself in the mindset to say that I'm willing to do whatever it takes? Because even your thought process with the dog walking was, I'm going to do this long enough to knock out a credit card. So talk about the mindset that went into being okay with having all these extra jobs, and how did you find balance with your relationship and working all these hours?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky because my fiance is really supportive and he kind of has the same mindset. So it helps. So we kind of plan our schedules together. He has a side business where he rents bounce houses on the weekends in the summer. So last summer, when I wasn't in between dog walking and Trader Joe's, when I wasn't working, I wasn't really seeing him that much anyway. So I was like, okay, this is going to work because he's hustling through the summer and I can do the same, and we can kind of just get things in order. So he's been really supportive and we live together. So that's really easy. So we create quality time through like cooking together and eating together, going for walks, and sharing calendars. There are definitely times where it's hard. But then I feel like the world just kind of sends you quick reminders of like why this is important with the ways things happen in life. Like just last week, my brother reached out to me because he's having a hard time, and he's like, "Can you come to LA?" And it felt so great to be able to like, yes, that's not a problem. I can afford a ticket. So it's just kind of all these affirmations that this is the path for me, and I need to do this because there are things that are more important than my desire to go to happy hour or things like that. So yeah, I think just like a lot of practical methods around scheduling. My friends have been really understanding because I haven't been able to do like girls' trips or go for birthdays. One thing I haven't said no to are weddings. So traveling for weddings or traveling for family things are things that I will do and will adjust my budget for. Um, and then I've just been doing a lot of free things like in Cleveland, the museums are free. Of course, the parks, and there's a lot of festivals in the summer. So I feel like I still have balance socially. And then also spending time with my fiance, just doing the day-to-day stuff has kept me going.
That's great. So, what has been your approach with the side hustles? So, I think this is pretty interesting that you've done 3 side hustles that I've counted: the dog walking, Trader Joe's, and teaching as well. So, what has been your approach with the income that's coming in from these particular side hustles? Do you immediately just allocate them towards a debt? How do you pretty much work your side hustle and then account for the income that's coming in from them?
So I do the zero-based budget, and at first I was like pretty obsessive about it. Like even if I went and bought like, I don't know, something for $1, I would go and adjust it. And now I've kind of let loose a little bit because I have more trust in myself. But it worked out that, I mean, Trader Joe's is a great side hustle. For anyone that wants a side hustle, I just promote it because they've been so good to me. But it worked out that I was able to pay all of my living expenses and like groceries and like basically bills out of my Trader Joe's income because I was making about $1,000 a month, and Cleveland's cost of living is low, and I live with my fiance, and I cut a lot of my expenses. So I canceled my gym membership, and I really canceled all the things that I could. I don't have any subscriptions. I do have people's passwords, so that helps. But yeah, so I pay for just my monthly living expenses out of Trader Joe's, and then I save, I think like $500 a month, and then I put everything else towards debt.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
So talk about the conversations that you and your fiance have had to have along this journey, because that's where in relationships, marriages, or just couples in general, when they are trying to get on the same page financially, the conversations don't always go well. So how have you all navigated this and found ways? Because you said, there is certain seasons where you're both hustling at the same time, and you have to be, intentional about spending quality time and creative in how you do it. Talk to us, talk to the people listening, how you all have gone about those conversations and figured out a plan that worked for you all.
Yeah. So talking about money was something that I always felt a little insecure about, especially working in the nonprofit sector. And he works in corporate, so he makes like double what I make. So I wasn't sure like if he would judge me or like how that would go. So we actually set up a system when we were dating, because both of us are a little shy and reserved. So bringing up difficult conversations or emotional conversations were hard for us. We actually created a list of conversations that we knew we needed to have as we were growing our relationship, and money was one of them. And so once we started talking about money, and we were really transparent with each other. We shared each other's salaries. We shared what we had in retirement, what our basically our financial aspirations were. And then basically the conversation hasn't stopped. I think it's something that kind of excites and reinvigorates us. For me, I mean, people tell me, don't pay off your student loans. Like, we might get it forgiven. But at this point, it's like a personal challenge to show that I can create a plan and I can execute it
That's
and be
right.
successful.
Forgive yourself, Shruti. Forgive yourself. Don't wait
Yes,
for the
I have to
government.
forgive myself. That's much more powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and we don't really have like monthly money conversations or weekly. I actually tried to implement something like that because I thought it'd be good to get on the same page, mainly because I felt like it'd be more beneficial to me to have someone to talk something through with. But it turned out that we both just talk about money with each other all the time. Like I'm constantly updating him on things. He's constantly telling me like, oh, from bounce house rentals this weekend, I made this much. Um, the next big financial thing we have coming up together is a wedding, which is expensive and but in my culture weddings are very important and they're sacred, so we are probably spending more than what is reasonable and what I would if my family's um, the way that my family feels wasn't involved in the decision. And then after that, we've talked about buying a house and where we want to buy a house, and not necessarily in like the most trendy part of town, but thinking about other areas and buying a house and then making improvements ourselves and trying to get the value up. So we've definitely talked about money in that sense, and but we don't really have systems in place because it's such a constant conversation.
So when is your projection on paying off the remainder $11,000? How long do you think it's going to take you?
So I'm projected to finish in November.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's
Yeah. So
3 more months? Four
Okay.
mhm.
more months?
All right.
Wow.
All right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So will this be before the wedding?
Yep. So the wedding is next May.
Oh,
Nice.
So then I'll have to start saving for that because I've put that on hold, and we'll just aggressively save for that.
now, has this been, I mean, it sounds like, because we're listening to your story and you're almost at the finish line, but we haven't been there for the day to day, the ups and downs. Was this all a bunch of ups? You just made a plan and just debt just started disappearing, or were there some challenges that you had to face that you had to fight through as you've been making this happen?
Um, yeah, it definitely hasn't been like all roses. Um, like my idea that I'll work at Trader Joe's and you're always on your feet and lifting boxes and stuff, and that will keep me fit. That's not the case because they always have snacks and stuff, so I've actually gotten less healthy since I've started working there. So I'm excited to like when I can quit and then I can really focus on my health and getting back there. I've had to miss some weddings and social things because I'm scheduled at Trader Joe's and they need me on the weekends. It's especially been hard in the summer because people just do a lot more in the summer. But and I have called out sick twice to do when I wasn't sick. Don't tell them that. But so it hasn't been all roses. It's definitely tiring, but it's been more positive than negative. I think I just realized that you're capable of doing anything that you put your mind to. Another thing I realized, because my mom worked in finance for a long time, and she's been telling me, like, you have interest rates, and why are you paying, like, making the banks richer? And this is what you need to do. You have all this leftover money and you don't know where it goes. And she was right. And I do wish that I started sooner. But I realized that it had to come from within, and it had to be my own journey. That's just how I operate, that when I decide something, I'll be able to do it. But if someone else tells me, I just have to get there myself. Maybe I should work on being less stubborn next. But um, but yes, I'm definitely looking forward to. I plan to quit Trader Joe's in November when I finish, but I'll keep teaching because that's been good for my growth as a professional. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to get my life back. I'm excited to be there for friends' birthdays and things like that. But I definitely have instilled in myself through this process of frugality, I guess. Like I realize how little I actually need. I always kind of seem to wear the same things. And if I go shopping, I'll just wear like a variation of something I already own and things like that. So it's really been, I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been powerful to be able to prioritize and kind of choose how you spend your money and your time. Because with my time being limited as well as a result, um, I never feel like I say no to things that are really important to me. And that's been powerful because before I used to say yes to everything.
I think living off your part-time side hustle, you're using your side hustle from Trader Joe's to pay your living expenses is pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you're using your full-time employment to save as well as pay down debt. Is this approach something that you would highly recommend to those who can find a side hustle that can take care of your living expenses so you can pretty much bank or pay off wealth with your full-time income?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it feels so good to just like have like, I get paid once a month from my nonprofit job, and it feels so good to like know that this is a big lump sum that I could just put towards my debt. And with Trader Joe's, that wasn't my intention when I first started. I just thought it would be like supplemental income that I'll just, whenever I get paid, I'll put it on my loans. But the way it worked out, I was like, oh, this will be good if I could kind of create these buckets and separate things, and it just helped me help keep me organized and worked out with the numbers and the figures that
Yeah.
way.
And I think it gave you a lot of momentum. I mean, you're going to be finished paying off your debt in just a few more months. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Incredible.
Your show helped me a lot. Like there was a phase where when I was driving to work, I would just listen to different people's stories and say like when the days that I'd feel discouraged or I don't want, and even other days because I felt like for a long time debt and finances were the only thing on my mind.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
thank you. This is why we do what we do.
Mhm.
It is definitely a passion of ours, a ministry of ours, because we know that it's helping so many people. So thank you for sharing that.
How did you prevent yourself from getting distracted? Because you talked about you got friends that want you to do this and that, and you're young, you're dating. This is prime time, right? It's the prime of your life, and you said on more than one occasion, I can't wait to get my life back. I can't wait to get my life back. So while you're in the fight, because you're here, because you're in the middle of your journey, how have you gone about not letting those things get your attention? How have you not allowed yourself to become discouraged at the fact that you can't go out and do this and do that because of what you're trying to do?
So in the beginning, it was definitely harder, but I think starting in January made it easier because a lot of people like it's cold, it's rainy, it's dark, so people weren't really doing much. There weren't like weddings or a lot of travel plans. So I kind of was able to build this mindset and this momentum. I definitely relied on reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts and stories. I watched the Minimalist documentary and just things like that to help shift my mindset because I knew that this is where I wanted to go. I guess another key thing I left out from the beginning was that there have been a couple times I do like my job and my work, but a couple times where I'm like, I don't know if this is the right fit. There was a couple times where like my job felt like it went against my values as far as like some of the people that were on the board and stuff. And I wanted to quit. And I was like, wait, I can't. I don't have the ability to. So another motivator was just to be able to be financially free so I can really choose work that aligns with my values and choose life, basically create a life that aligns with my values and not have to stay in a situation because of my finances. So the way I framed it in my mind was this is a short-term sacrifice for a lifetime of freedom.
Did you incorporate any, like celebrations along the way while paying off this debt?
Um, I didn't really, I mean, sometimes I would, if I paid off like a credit card. So when I paid off my two credit cards, I did celebrate. So I went and like got ice cream from this bougie ice cream place that's overpriced, but it's really good. Um, and then there were like so many weddings and things that I actually was like, I wish this wasn't happening now because I really want to spend that $500 on my debt instead. But then it ended up being like like I was forced to disconnect and go to these weddings and other things, and that felt like a celebration. So those happened often enough, and I'm lucky that I have a lot of friends that live in Cleveland, so I would still do social things, go to people's houses, do game night and things like that, that made it feel like I had balance.
You mentioned that, reading books was helpful. Are there any that you would recommend others to check out?
Yeah, so I read The Money Diaries. It's basically people, actually, it's a a book of women basically documenting how they spend their money and their time and their financial situation. So I thought that was helpful because I created my own money diary and got to see in like blog format as opposed to Excel worksheet format of like how I was spending my money and my daily life and things like that. So that was nice. I'm really into like storytelling, so these blogs and podcasts and things help. And then I also read the book Smart Women Finish Rich. And I like that book because it kind of gives you big picture sense of why your decisions today matter to your retirement and when you're buying a house and things like that. So it let me think beyond my debt and kind of create a more long-term plan.
Awesome. We'll be
Great.
sure to have those books linked up in the show notes of this episode. Shruti, man, we proud of you.
Very
You've
much
been
so.
knocking this thing out of the park. We're talking, what, $30,000 in 20
A little over
months.
30, yeah.
You're almost at the finish line. You're rocking it. And we're super glad that you were able to come and share your incredible story with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This is like a dream come true after watching your blogs and your videos. So I really appreciate what you guys do for everyone.